Trying out your own name is rather amusing. To think I was almost Josh or Joshua. Hey folks, it's Finn. Welcome back folks, lovely to see you. I hope you're all having a great week. So in today's vlog, I'm going to be talking about how I chose my name. Now a few people have asked me this and asked me to share how I came up with this, why, and also to share some tips for other people that might be thinking of changing their name and how to come up with some ideas. But before we get stuck into that, for anyone who is new, a very, very big welcome to our fabulous Finn fam. My name is Finn, and here on this channel and my accompanying website that you'll find in the description, I create content on gender transition, mental health and LGBT life. So if you've been hanging around for a while and enjoying my content, please do let me know by subscribing to my channel. It really does help to support my channel and it's easy to do. There's a big subscribe button just under there. Now, choosing my name was fun, but it was also equally a nightmare. Now, when I came out, I was in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and for anybody who knows anything about AA, the fundamental thing about an AA meeting is you say your name. So I was in a bit of a rush really to change because it was really hard to be coming out and to have to keep sitting in a meeting and say, my name is, and use my birth name. So I really wanted a name quickly. But it was so important that I chose the right one, clearly. But I was really worried about choosing a name that someone else had. And now I'm not really quite sure why I was that concerned. I was just so worried about coming out as trans and how people would take it. That I worried if I picked someone else's name that was in the group, I don't know, like Philip or Andy or something like that, that if I said that name, that person might feel awkward that I'd chosen the same name as them. Again, I really don't know why. So I wanted a less common name, but also I didn't want a name so uncommon that I stuck out like the proverbial sore thumb. A challenge. So what I did was I just kept Googling baby names and just kind of trying them on for size. And in the few weeks before I officially announced my name, I was literally trying on all different sorts of names. And my partner I was with at the time, we were trying out names together. And the first one we came up with was Joshua. I really do not think I'm a Joshua. And I was kind of thinking almost, but not quite right. And I always say that eventually your name will choose you. And it really did. And how this all came about was we went to a pride quiz one night at our local LGBT pub. And one of the questions was about Huckleberry Finn. Finn. Honestly, as soon as I heard that name, it was like my whole body went, yep, that's it. It conjured up images of like somebody on the Scottish Highlands in a kilt. Okay, I look nothing like a rugged Scotsman. But I love Scotland. I had such an incredible time when I lived and worked in Scotland, and it's a place I feel a lot of affinity towards. And it just felt right, Finn. I hope it's right because I've been living with it for 8 years now. I came home and I googled the different spellings of Finn, and it seemed that spelling it as I do, Finlay, was the Scottish way and Finley was the more Irish way. Now, I didn't want to just have Finn. It didn't seem to go right with my surname, Finn Games. It felt like it needed more syllables, so Finlay Games rolled better. And Finn to me is a shortened version of Finlay. So it made sense to have my name Finlay and then have everyone call me Finn. And the strange thing with Finn, of course, is that when you spell it in its full name, it's one N. When you spell it just Finn, it's two N's. I have since found out that you can just have Finn as a name and that's it. But I'm happy I went with Finlay. So Googling what the name meant, it means fair warrior. I wasn't this camp when I chose this name. And I just love that because that's very much how I vision myself. I have battled a lot over these last 10 years, you know, mental health, overcoming addiction to alcohol and cannabis, going through transition, you know, all of these battles. So fair warrior really made sense to me. The connection with Scotland and the meaning was just making me go, yes, I'm Finn. So that's how I chose my name. It was a pub quiz, a random shout, and that was it. I knew that was my name. And from the get-go, it just really fitted. Although I did notice in the beginning that people were trying to call me Phil because they thought it was Phyllis. Really? And this is the thing, isn't it? When we're new out and we don't yet quite look as the man we are, a lot of people just assumed I was female and so tried to make sense of the name Finn and thought it must be short for a girl's name, and the only girl's name that came up was Phil. Which brings me nicely on to my tips for changing your name. Now, lots of people I know have chosen their name in a much more sensible and organised way than I did. Although, as I often say, I am a very big believer in letting life lead the way. And sometimes life knows what's better for you than you do. It knew my name and it brought me to it. So that's fine. But what lots of people do, especially older trans people, is they look up baby names for their year of birth so that you can pretty much guarantee that what name you choose corresponds with the age you are. I didn't do that. So actually, I do notice sometimes that people will say, oh, that's a very unusual name. I had a lot of that in early transition because it was an unusual name for somebody that I was 40 at the time. And so a lot of people just assumed my parents were quite new age or whatever. So there was a lot to be said for choosing a name that's age appropriate if you don't want to draw attention to yourself. It's also a really good idea to choose a name that people can pronounce easily, that you can spell easily, because when you're newly out, the last thing you want to be doing is constantly re-explaining your name or respelling it or re-saying it, because then you're just drawing attention to yourself. And as I say, I did experience this a bit when I used Finn, because people were trying to make sense of my face not matching the name. So I actually started using my full name Finlay, so it was easier, it was signalled to people. So it's a good idea to choose a name that signals your gender to people quite clearly and that can't be confused, so that it's much easier for you in early days just to say your name, because my goodness, it brings up so much anxiety when you're first out as trans and living as the gender you are. You feel like the whole world's looking at you anyway. So if you're having to explain your name, it just brings up more stress. But, as I always say, it is up to you. If you want a name that is really unusual and current and doesn't match your year of birth, absolutely, why not? This is yours to choose. This is your life. We have lived our lives for other people for far too long in living the gender that we should never have been. So you can take that advice or you can chuck it away and make your own way forward. Seriously, it really is up to you at the end of the day. It is what works for you. If you're somebody that just doesn't want any attention drawn to yourself, if you just want to transition and just be left alone and have less eyes on you, then choosing a straightforward name that corresponds with your year of birth might be your best way forward. If you don't give a monkeys and you just want to choose a name that works for you, then do that. Was that helpful, or was it just a waffle? I do hope it helped. I'd love to know your thoughts. How did you choose your name? What way works for you? Do please leave me a message in the comments below. It's always really interesting for me to see how people came up with their names, and for other people who are just starting this journey to see how other people went through that process of changing their name as well. So do leave me a comment. Thanks so much for watching, folks. Take care of yourselves. See you next week.